Roy will get him here.
If he's not dead. Sorry.
Roy won't let that happen.
Yeah, I hope not.
He believes in something. You don't.
It doesn't matter. Good people die every day believing in things.
Roy spent 2 years watching another man raise our son. He did what I couldn't. He'll do anything to get him here.
That was a clip from Midnight Special, and I'm joined by Kirsten now. Kirsten, thanks so much for being with us today.
Thanks for having me.
I want to ask you a million things about this film that I actually can't, and I'm going to be very careful and try and not tread on too many spoilers. But what is it safe for listeners to go into this movie knowing about your character, Sarah?
Well, I would say that when you meet Sarah, she has not seen her son in 2 years. And she has been living on, she was living on a religious ranch, and she's been excommunicated. So in a sense, she's been living in this silent purgatory when you meet her. And then the rest of her journey is going on a crusade for her son. That's not too much.
No, that's pretty
I mean, I think by the
done.
time you get to my character, you figure out, like, those kind of things. So,
Yes.
But the whole movie in itself feels a little bit like, you know, an E.T. or Close Encounters of the Third Kind, or just like an old Amblin Entertainment movie. And I can say that because Jeff Nichols, the director, references all these movies, but he's such a unique filmmaker that it doesn't matter because it's all, you know, coming from his anxieties and his past and, yeah, his personal experiences.
Well, this is the thing, because Midnight Special over here is rated 12A, so it's a film that you could take children to. I mean, do you see it as being a kind of a family film? Because when I was watching it myself, I was thinking back, you know, this is like these old Spielberg movies. Close Encounters is such an absolutely key touchstone, I think. And there is a sequence of hair cutting that reminded me of Terminator.
Yeah,
I don't know
me
if that's
too.
deliberate or not.
No,
but
of course it did for me too. Always like, but I don't want to say why. But yes. Me as well.
So those references and that kind of sense of nostalgia are all seeded very carefully through the film. But I mean,
Yes.
do you see it as being a family movie, or is it a movie about family? Or
To
how do
be
you
interesting
characterize it?
for me, sorry to cut you off. It feels like a movie that when I was younger, I didn't feel like I was allowed to see, but I was seeing it and I could. It feels like, you know, when you're scared or watching an adult thing, but you're learning so much and you're getting this movie experience that you haven't experienced yet because movies just aren't like this for someone who's 13. And it's that really exciting feeling of like, I shouldn't be watching this, but I can.
I think one of the things that Jeff Nichols does incredibly well, this is his first overtly sci-fi toned film, but his other movies have been about people who are kind of on the outside of polite society and these kind of strange wilderness dwellers who actually might be onto something after all. Michael Shannon in Take Shelter, you know, this feels almost like a kind of a twin movie with that for me. Is this guy who's looking around saying, you know, at these storms breaking the sky, is anyone else seeing this? He's this
Yeah.
kind of mad visionary, but in the same sense, the film kind of takes his side as well. When you looked at this script in the first place, again, being very careful of spoilers, but it goes to some very wild places at the end. So when you're reading this and you're saying, okay, so we've got an 8-year-old boy here who, and then they, and then in this kind of beautiful reed bed, were you thinking to yourself, how on earth is this actually going to, you know, how's it going to work on screen? Because it gets quite kind of abstract and strange.
I knew it would work because Jeff Nichols is a brilliant director. And I knew that whatever his vision was when he was writing this, which he writes and goes through and takes out exposition and really like he with such his internal like fine-tooth comb, whatever that is for him, I feel like I was a fan before and I wasn't worried at all about what anything was going to look like, or I was more worried about like how am I going to make this seem believable, because for me and my character, like the weight of is mostly like through my eyes.
A film like this, which was made on a very, very small budget, which is doing the kind of things that blockbusters used to do 35 years ago, like Close Encounters. Why is it you think that independent cinema is taking up the slack when studios are looking to make different kinds of films now?
I actually think television's picking up the slack. I think independent films are also suffering. Unless it's like, a Wes Anderson, or you already know the brand of the director you're getting in independent film, I think it's very difficult. It's a very difficult medium. Like, no one really gets paid. Like, you really have to be, very... It's a big risk, and I feel like it's feeling like film for television now, independent films. Like, I watch independent films on the plane or at home on iTunes, or you know what I mean? It's very rare that, like, you go to seek it out at your local cinema. It's like, I feel like TV right now is for adults mostly, and movies are for kids.
I mean, you've been working on the Fargo TV series. Do you see a distinction between making something like that and making a film? I mean, workload-wise, TV must be different. TV's
way harder. Anyone who's on a TV show for like 22 episodes, I don't know how they do. It's so fast-paced. It's so demanding. I'm happy Fargo season 2 is just 10 episodes, because the amount of work, whatever your process is, and for your character, or it's like you feel like you're running a marathon. I was pretty tapped out after that. I like working on a TV show. I definitely would just do an ensemble role if I ever did one again, because it's you don't get even half the time of making a movie. How
much time do you actually have then when you get one of the Fargo episode scripts between that and then actually going on set?
Well, I got the first 2 episodes at first. First 2 episodes before I actually got the role, and then I received 4 episodes. And then every few weeks you get another 1 episode. But which also was weird to work that way too. I'd never worked with different directors. Usually I pick projects based on the director. So that was interesting too. Even though Noah Hawley was, the director of the entire project, one time I worked with 3 different directors in one day for 3 different episodes. So that was something I really wasn't used to. And I wasn't comfortable with it first. And then by the end, I knew what I was doing, so I didn't really feel like, okay, I got this. And the actors, all of us together, kind of had each other's back, and our camera operator was consistent. And so, but it is harder to find a consistent, community of okay, this is our director, this is this, because we'd switch it up so much that it was new for me.
I want to ask you about working with Jaden Lieberer, who plays Alton. Mm-hmm. Now, you came from a child acting background yourself. You've been in front of the camera, I think, pretty much since you could talk, right? You started very, very young.
I started very young, yeah.
Did that give you to a kind of a common ground on set? Were you able to help him out, give him any kind of tips?
He's a very wise young actor and very naturally gifted, and the one advice I did have for him is, because he is homeschooled, is I never was homeschooled. I always went to high school. I always went to normal high schools. And that's the one thing advice I gave him. I was like, if you can, and find a school that will work with you, it's so important developmentally to do your movie thing, and then, go to the prom, be a part of a sports team, go to the football games. I'm talking all American stuff, but that kind of stuff, do your dances, have your lunch table. It's important. So that was my one thing I wanted him to do.
And how did Jeff work with him in terms of drawing out a child? Because I know that directors work with children in a different way to they work with adult actors. Was there a particular technique or something that he was able to draw out this incredibly kind of, when you say he's a wise kid,
yeah,
he has that look of wisdom about him throughout the film. He knows stuff which is obviously ideal for the role, but he knows stuff that you don't.
It's interesting because Jeff went to all these special schools to find this genius child, and he was just at CAA at an agency in California. They had found him already, but Jeff has a way. I think because Jeff has a son, so he knows how to work with children, and he's very patient. And he picked a child that he knew that could carry his film, and he was. Just talk to him like he would his own son.
What was the first performance you remember doing where you thought, I have completely nailed this as a professional actor? This is something that I'm aware that it's not just been a kind of a thing that I do, but this is a really proud piece of work.
I did a movie with my friends this last year that's coming out this year called Woodshock. They do a clothing line called Rodarte, and they did the costumes, all the ballerina outfits for Black Swan, and they're two very they're just genius sisters. And I feel like after Fargo, which that was the hardest thing I'd ever done, I did this movie, and that was the hardest thing I'd ever done. So I know I did things in that, for me, even if who knows what happens with the film, but that were so shocking and crazy that I was like, whoa, I can't believe I did that. But it feels really good too. It gets things out of you. I don't know. The best acting for me is when I feel like something from my life really was undone and released. So yeah.
That was the sense that I got from the film you did with Lars von Trier.
Yeah, for sure.
Melancholia, which was
that
just this kind of incredible, kind of soul-peeling performance. After,
Thank you.
Because you've been known, you don't need me to tell you that, you got Best Actress at Cannes for that. So that was obviously, I'm assuming that film has a kind of a special place
of course
in your career. But before then, you'd done these 3 Spider-Man films, and you were kind of part of this kind of entrenched blockbuster culture, and then, off to do something wild like that.
But I also did Marie Antoinette in between that, and Virgin Suicides, and before that, and Eternal Sunshine was mid Spider-Man 2. So I never felt like I didn't have that balance, and Spider-Man gave me the opportunities to be someone with a value that could do an independent film and bring money to that film. And also when I started the Spider-Man movies, Sam Raimi and Tobey was the indie cool dude at the time too. It was a very I look at those movies so fondly, but yeah, after those movies, I think after anyone does a franchise, you got to kind of figure out wow, you have all the success now. What are you going to do with this success? And then it's up to your taste and what you want to carve out for a career of yourself. And for me, I just want to work with people that inspire me and to try and make good things with them because, otherwise I don't want to be an actor. You know what I mean? You
mentioned having the Spider-Man films being something that you could do and bring value to independent movies as someone who can, is top-lining a blockbuster as well. Having been a part of that cycle of superhero films, now when you see the industry sort of gearing up to that again, and really, I suppose, not even just gearing up, but churning right through with stuff like Batman versus Superman, do you recognise what the industry is doing now, or does it feel different this time round as someone who is sort of, works in a business, but is not actually actively involved with them?
It wasn't as franchise heavy when we were making Spider-Man. I think the only other one was the Star Wars reboot. I think around that time.
X-Men was
X-Men
maybe
was
just
starting,
predated
maybe,
it, I think.
I don't know. I'm not the expert on superhero movies. But I wouldn't mind MJ making a appearance again. It's a very nice paycheck.
Right.
I would do MJ versus the Avengers.
Well, and look, if it gets another Jeff Nichols film, then
exactly.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I think, Sally, that's all we've got time for. But Kirsten, thank you very much indeed for being here.
Thank you for having me.